everyone, Vasel here, and today we're taking a look at the second video in my series, AlphaBest, which is top 10 lists based on each letter of the alphabet. Yes, it's a silly premise, but what it does is it lets us take a look at different games that we might not look at otherwise. Today we're taking a look at the letter A. We did numbers last time, so let's get started. Number 10 is Arkham Horror. Now, Arkham Horror might have been higher on the list at one point, except Eldritch Horror came out, which kind of knocked Arkham Horror down some. But I have to give props to Arkham Horror because of the complete and full story that's in that game. I'm not a big fan of horror. Now, the Cthulhu thing, I can take it or leave it, but the Arkham was just so interesting. So many different things could happen, especially when you added in the expansions, and they probably did too many expansions, but just so many different events. And when I'm done with the game Arkham Horror, I'm like, oh, and we did this, and then we went over here, and then there was a creepy guy in this place, and I just get a big kick out of it. It's interesting, it's grandiose, and it's an experience that you will remember. Number 9 is Abyss. Abyss is a game when I first played it, I didn't think it would make such a list like this. But Abyss just keeps coming back to the table, especially with the expansion that came out. It has some of the best artwork of any game ever, but the game has a lot of things I like. It has a bit of push your luck as you put out cards and decide, am I going to take that card or not? You have these really cool components with the pearls, neat special abilities that players can get, and some interaction, but not too much. It just feels different. There's a lot of Euro games out there, but this one has a different feel than many others, and plays in a very quick time and just looks gorgeous on the table. Number 8 is Amun-Re. This is another Euro game designed by Rainer Knizia over a decade ago, although it's supposed to be reprinted maybe this year. Amun-Re is fascinating to me because the game can essentially be split into two halves, where there is the first half of the game where you're building up pyramids and getting points for different regions, and then they're wiped. Everything's wiped except the pyramids stay there. And then the second half, you're fighting for these same regions, but now some of them are already built up. And it has this first generation and second generation, also a neat auction, one of my favorite ways to auction, with the numbers already written on the board, and you just basically pick them. Really solid, excellent game. I'm looking forward to the reprint. Number 7 is Alien Frontiers. I'm a big fan of games where you use dice for other than just rolling them and moving. This is one where you roll dice, your dice become spaceships on the board. You use them to get different resources so that you can drop colonies on the planet. I especially like it with the first expansion that gave each player kind of a unique power that they had. But I mean, the components of the game, the really cool space exploration type thing, and this game was a sequel in a sense to Kingsburg, but I think as time went by, for me, I think I might like this one a little bit better. That's Alien Frontiers. Number 6 is Alchemists. Alchemist is a logic deduction game that uses a smartphone in it to you take a picture, or you use your viewfinder to find the cards, and it matches them, and it tells you what that combination gets you. It's a cool concept. It's a way that uses the smartphone not just as a gimmick, but as a way that you couldn't do it many other ways. I mean, the game actually has a manual way to do it. It's just a waste of time. But then behind that, it's a pretty light deduction game maybe, but there's a pretty hefty worker placement game. This is a big, cool, solid game. So, Alchemist. My number 5 is a newer game. It just came out of Essen last year, and that's Automania. This is a game about building cars and then selling those cars. One of the things I really like about this game is it ramps up right away. On turn 1, you can sell a car, and you're constantly building cars and buying better parts for the cars. But this is not a complex game. Many games about selling cars seem to be fairly complex, involved games. This one's very simple. You move pieces. You're fighting other players to get the different cars out into different markets. There's a cool grid mechanism where you're placing people to take different tiles to make your cars better and get those extra luxuries. A really solid put together game. I'm very eager to play this one again soon. Number 4 is Ave Caesar, which is a racing game, one of my favorite racing games. You're racing chariots around the board. You have a deck of cards. You use those cards to block each other. This is a mean racing game, but it's also very light. Can go up to 6 players easily. You have 3 laps, but you have to stop between 2 of the laps to shout Ave Caesar and throw your coin to him, and you keep going. light, easy. This is a game that I'm kind of surprised is out of print, but I would imagine you'll see it back in print at some point because it is really that good of a racing game. Number 3 is a very light game compared to most of the other games on my list, and that's Adventurers Temple of Shock. But I cannot emphasize how much I enjoy this game. I have a lot of adventure games here, but Adventurers, which is right here, has a boulder that's rolling after you, and you're running from it, and walls are closing, and you're jumping over the lava, and it feels like that. Again, this isn't deep, but this game has provided me with so much fun over the years, has really cool plastic components. I'm just always excited to try this one out, The Adventurers. Number 2 is Airlines Europe, which is a reimplementation of Union Pacific from Alan Moon, but this one did it so well. Union Pacific was good, but this Airlines Europe is great. In this one, you are connecting different routes in Europe with planes, basically making stock in those companies get bigger, but also investing in those. And so you have to decide, is it better to invest or to grow the company? And you're always wanting to do one or the other. You want to have your fingers in as many different companies as possible, but you also want to control each of the companies. So there's that back and forth. It's easy to get into, easy to teach, but offers, I think, some pretty heavy strategy, but at the same time never feels overwhelming. A really solid game, Airlines Europe. And number 1 for me was an easy choice from Cool Mini or Not, and that is Arcadia Quest. Now there's a lot of dungeon crawls out there, and there's also a lot of combat games. Arcadia Quest manages to mix them somehow. You are on a quote-unquote dungeon crawl, I guess. There's monsters running around, but they are, as the designer explained, walking bags of loot. You're just hitting them to get coins and stuff, but you're really going after the other players. Sheer fun. I don't know how else to explain it. Every time we set this up, I have my 3 heroes. They're running around, and they're coming after your 3, and you're coming after mine, and we're trying to avoid each other, get them and upgrade weapons to go to level 2, and upgrade levels to go to weapon 3. It just ramps up in fun and entertainment. And every time I bring this out, I have such a blast. This is one of my favorite games ever. So those are my top 10 games for the letter A. There's a couple that may have missed the list, and people will yell about those. Agricola, I liked it very much, but that one has been completely taken off the list by Caverna, which I like better. Acquire just missed the list, a great stock market game. Alhambra, a great city tile laying game type thing. And Among the Stars, which is a great drafting game building a space station. Those are also great games that missed my list. Anyway, those are my top 10 games that start with the letter A. See you next week for B. Letter B.
Thanks so much for watching the Dice Tower videos. Find more great videos and reviews, as well as our top-rated audio podcast at Dicetower.com. You can also find other great shows at Dicetowernetwork.com. I'm Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower. The Dice Tower is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc., where you can find great games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock. Check them out at CoolStuffInc.com.